All right, Miles, let's move on to Nebraska football. This is a team under new head coach Matt Rhule has had one heck of an offseason. We talked about it a lot. Great job in the recruiting department, great job in the transfer portal. Looks like Matt Rhule has done a lot of good things to rebuild a lot of the institutions there at Nebraska. And we have news out of spring ball that I think shows the kind of momentum and culture shift that Rhule is leading in this program.
Yeah, Nick, Matt Rhule, known, turnaround master. He can take a team from the bottom, bring them to the top. I feel like that's going to be the case here at Nebraska as well. And this is no different than spring ball as well. And I want to ask the fans in the comments below, so far throughout spring ball, spring training, however you want to call it, who's been a guy that's kind of stood out to you? Who's the guy that's primed for a breakout season? Someone that maybe has fallen under the radar, but you see your eye on in this new Matt Rhule regime and that you think they are going to be a star on this Cornhuskers team. Let us know in the comments below who the breakout of spring will be. But Nick, what do we have on Nebraska?
So I think one of the interesting things that Rule had to change with this program was to make it tough again, to make it physical again. Because I think that was Nebraska in its heyday. That's what they were. They were they obviously had a lot of great athletes, but they were a physical, downhill, aggressive, great defense. Obviously, talking about the black shirts, and of course, the way they ran the football was unprecedented, in my opinion, in college football history. They have to bring that back, and then it's exactly what Rule is doing with some of his practice rules that he's put up. This is according to Larry Brown Sports. Under former head coach Mark Frost, Nebraska players did not do a lot of tackling during practices. I know some people may find that strange that football players don't tackle during practice, but it is true. The report will go on to say that was something interim head coach Mickey Joseph wanted to change, as the Cornhuskers tackling was recognized as a problem under Frost. During a Thursday post-practice press conference, Rhule revealed that the team was doing full speed practice with even quarterbacks live. All right, Miles, just to give you a little my context. Of course, context. I played college football, as you know, as a smaller level college guy. We played a triple option offense. For those who aren't familiar, the quarterback is basically acting as another running back. It's an option offense. Even we did not have the quarterbacks live during practice, which what live means quarterback tackling to the ground. So if you had a chance to hit the quarterback 99% of times, except for the rarest of occasions, you would pull up just because you want to maybe avoid injuries. You didn't want anyone to get banged up, things like that. Rule has done the opposite approach. He said, listen, every single one of our players is live. You can tackle them, you can get them to the ground, you can cut them, whatever you got to do. Miles, I really like this because this is one of those things when you're trying to rebuild and restart a program, you got to start with the fundamentals and the basics. It sounds really strange because oh, these elite level college football players. But the reality is you do forget how to tackle. You do forget how to block and be physical if you don't do it all the time, just because of how complex the game has gone. You kind of, the finer points of it, things like that. It's like a golfer, right? Who just, doesn't go to the putting green enough. He spends all his time at the driving range. Next time he goes and plays around and tries to putt, he can't putt anymore because his stroke's out of whack. It's the same thing with tackling. It's the same thing with cut blocking. It's the same thing with anything that a lot of programs don't like to do during practice anymore. So I really like that Matt Rhule is re-emphasizing this approach and going back to basics and setting a tough physical tone for this football team like the Nebraska programs of old. Give me your thoughts on this decision by Rhule Mize and everything with the Nebraska program right now.
No, I mean, I love it. I love it anytime, teams bring back hard nose, old school, run the ball up the gut, 3 yards, cloud of dust every play, tackle in practice, quarterback, they're nobody's safe. Everybody's getting tackled. And like you said, tackling is kind of like a perishable skill. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So it's better for them to get tuned up during spring training, get their tackling feet, so to say, back underneath them. And then, I think that even helps going forward into the season. Proper tackling technique is going to prevent injuries in season if you are more practiced at tackle and getting tackled for the offensive side of the ball. Because more or less, Nick, I don't know the exact number, I'm making this up here, but 70%, 80% of every play is going to end in a tackle. There's only very few options for it to end in. Touchdown, out of bounds, incompletion, or tackle. So there you go. I think tackling is a big part of the game, and I think it's important for people to know how to tackle, but also for the quarterback, for the offensive side of the ball, to know how to get tackled and be able to go to the ground safely. We see that in the NFL lately. People are doing all kinds of stuff like martial arts, judo, things like that, learning how to be tackled more safely to avoid injury. But just practicing tackling is going to do that as well. So the safety aspect is there as well as the toughness. If you're tackling every day in practice, if you're not tackling every day in practice, when you go into the game, you might get that first hit as a running back from a linebacker who's a strong downhill linebacker and be, ooh, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's dodge that guy, or let's maybe go to the ground early, something like that. If you're getting tackled every day in practice, it's just going to be like another day at work. You're going to punch in, you're going to get tackled every day. It's really not going to phase you. So I like all aspects of what Rhule's doing here. And I just think this is why he is so successful as a turnaround guy, because he comes in and is easily able to completely flip the culture of a team that has kind of been, in the lowest point they've been in a while.
Yeah, Miles, I just want to leave you with this final point. So during going into my senior year, we obviously switched coaches, completely new program, very similar to a lot of what the Nebraska players currently are going for. They had Frost previously. They got a new regime and Rhule here. And one of the things that happened with the new program, they come in, obviously you have winter workouts in January and February leading up to spring ball. And all the new coaches, I remember it, they had all their favorites with all the guys that were looking really good in the weight room, really good doing the cone drills, really good on the turf running sprints. And these were the guys that they elevated really high on the depth chart early on going into spring ball, because they thought, oh, these guys look great in shorts. They're going to be superstars. But the moment the pads came on and the pads started, tackling started happening, cut blocks started happening, bodies started flying. These coaches, the new coaches realized those guys maybe weren't the best football players, and were able to evaluate and make decisions to put better guys in those situations. Going to making sure you have tackling allows Rhule and company to make those evaluations, because sometimes we see new programs and new coaches come into these programs and they sit there and say, listen, we're not going to tackle. We want to keep our bodies fresh. But then you can't really evaluate how good players are. You're stuck looking how good player, when it comes to making those decisions, you're stuck looking at a player like, well, he looks good. He looks like he's running fast. He looks like he can, take a hit. He looks like he's strong, but you don't really know because he hasn't been tackled yet. He hasn't been physically blocked yet. He hasn't been tried to be cut yet. And you don't really get that evaluation until they go through that process. So that's going to play a huge role as well. It's not just getting the team tougher and more physical, which will be big for them coming into the season. It also allows Rhule and his coaching staff to evaluate how good each of their current players are and figure out where the weaknesses are as they get ready for summer and fall. So from both sides of the coin, this is a great decision by Matt Rhule.